Hello guys, TKC here with another cool analysis video. Today I'm going to be analyzing the current state of the Kaijudo metagame, a week or two after Evo Fury's release. So unfortunately I didn't go to League last weekend. I think everyone was busy and I didn't feel like going to League, and then no one was there to duel, so I ended up staying home and resting up a bit more because I was still sick, and I think I still am a little bit, but not that much. I think I have a little bit of a cough, but that is it. So it's nothing too special. Next week I'll be up and ready to go. Hopefully people will actually show up to League. I don't know, League's not looking too good right now because a lot of people are really busy. So I'm going to be talking about, a handful of decks that are the most prominently seen so far around the meta. Now, unfortunately, there are no tournaments to actually analyze results or things like that. So I'm merely collecting deck profiles and deck posts on various forums and stuff. I'm just kind of collecting the total count of every deck seen on all these things, and then we come to this conclusion of this is how many people are using this deck and blah blah blah. It's not really that accurate, but at least it gives us a basic idea of what are the most common decks we're seeing after Evo Fury's release. So this first deck, the most popular deck I've seen, which is not really too surprising, is Mono Blue Cyberlords. It's been a really hyped up idea ever since Emperor Neuron. Unfortunately, I don't have an Emperor Neuron to show you right now. But with the release of Reef Gladiator and Emperor Neuron and even Emperor Axon, along with cheap bait in Cyber Trader and Cyber Sprite, it was probably one of the most common decks to be built. And unfortunately, I don't know, from what I've seen, and I've played against it a couple times, I don't think it really has what it takes to be a really good deck right now. Of course, Emperor Non is a really insane card, and it has a lot of awesome bait like Seneschal, Trader, Sprite, and it has an awesome power-up card like Finbar. And heck, it even got a boost to Angler Cluster from the original game. This card even allows you to draw cards when you block. There are just a lot of awesome cards in this deck, but it just seems that it doesn't really have what it takes to get over a lot of other decks. Especially the decks that pack a lot of spot removal, cheap spot removal. You may have seen CVH's most recent duel. I think he just uploaded it today. Boneblades just puts in work against the Neuron and Seneschal and Reef Gladiator and pretty much everything. A lot of the evolutions are level 4 or less, believe it or not. And so Boneblades is a lot more of a better card now, and Return of the Soil and all those other cards. For that reason, Cyberlords are just not where they need to be just yet. I think they just need a bit more power to the deck, even though there's a lot of really good cards in it. Not too surprisingly, after the Mono Water Cyberlord deck, the most popular deck I've seen around is the Water Dark Fire Control deck. Water Dark Fire Control has been a deck that's been around ever since Duel Masters in the English game, and it just keeps on going in this game as well. It has the same kinds of cards that allow it to do good. We got the logo scan, we got really excellent discard in this, Fumes, Gigastan, Skull Shatter, and then we even have the powerful fire finishers such as Tetsura and the Unchained, Bolt-tailed Dragon, and maybe even Morna the Vengeful if you could get that off. So despite the dramatic increase of speed of the format because of evolutions, slow decks like Control, especially like Water Dark Fire Control, are still around. They could still do the work. The Bone Blades are still there to get rid of the evolutions. I just think that evolutions, they are changing the game quite a bit, but that doesn't really mean that Control decks are faltering. I still think they're as strong as ever, even with the evolutions coming out. And heck, this deck could even use some evolutions as well. You could use Neuron on some of the Cyberlords in the deck, like Seneschal most notably. Cyber Trader, rather, is really good in the deck as well. And of course, you can't forget Hydra Medusa. There's a lot of great chimeras to evolve on top of, like Gigastan, Scaradorable Gloom Hollow, Screeching Scaradorable, even Dark Scaradorable if you really need to. So Water Dark Fire Control is definitely here to stay, and it definitely has the tools needed to get rid of these fast decks. Now, speaking of fast decks, Rush got a major boost in usability now. So there are a lot of variants of Rush. You could build Rush in almost any way now, but I believe the most common one would be Fire Water Rush. So ever since the release of this card, I think this card is really what put it over the top. This Laser Arm Dracon card, a level 3 double breaker, is just absolutely brutal. I believe in the Japanese game, they released a card similar to this very early on in the game, like after around the set 2 in the Japanese game. It was called Divine Machine Armor Valborg or something like that. The effect was very, very similar to this. But they didn't bring that card to the English game, and it's because it was just too good. It was just really good in Rush. So what they did is they brought it into the game pretty late, and they like kind of nerfed it but buffed it at the same time. Like instead of making it level 3, they made it a level 5, I think, with like 2,000 more power and a very similar effect. But that doesn't really make it good anymore because you can't use it in Rush. And I believe they like just took Valborg and they reversed the name and called it Groblav. So like that's a kind of neat story about it. But anyways, now that Rush has this kind of card here in the English game, and Kaijudo now anyways, it really puts it over the top. Of course, Neuron also being really cheap and unblockable, and drawing you cards is also a very good candidate for Fire Water Rush. But you could also play either Mono Fire, which could work, or you could pair it up with even Nature, or Light, or Dark. Like, there's so many possibilities, but you would probably want to have at least Fire because of the amazing Rush cards, and then you just pair it up with almost any civilization you really want, to be honest. So it's pretty cool to see that, you know, the main 3 archetypes of Kaijudo are each represented by, you know, one deck most prominently. So I guess aggro / control, I guess it depends how you build the deck, but Cyberlords fits that. And then control has Water Dark Fire at the top, well, as far as most played deck anyway. And then we have Rush with Fire, insert civilization here, Rush, but mostly water or nature. But there's still 2 other decks that are still, you know, just a little bit behind, but I think they're also really great decks. We also have Blurple control, so we have Dark Scare Adorable and Hydra Medusa, which is pretty much kind of mandatory in a Blurple control, so there's always that. It doesn't have as much options as, you know, having a 3-color control deck, whether you use Fire, Nature, or Light, but I think it still packs quite a punch. It allows you to have more room for Neuron and a lot more Chimeras, and so that deck definitely packs a huge punch. And there is one more deck that I haven't really mentioned, but it's mainly being used in a lot of different ways, so it's kind of, there's not really one deck that's being played the most, but Hyperspeed Dragon decks, you know, using Evil Fury Tats or not, Bolgash, Hyperspeed, of course. They're used in many different ways. I believe from what I've seen, there's something like, I think 5 or 6 different civilization combinations to use Hyperspeed Dragon. The most common one being Fire Nature because of Reap and Sow and stuff, and like all the other draw cards that Nature has, like Great Arena. You could actually play Fire Nature Dragons without needing water. I think the Hyperspeed deck with water is the second most seen deck to play Hyperspeed. I don't really know what to say about Hyperspeed. I think it still is quite a powerful deck. I just feel that this deck dies easily to Rush unless you build, I guess, some sort of like a water variant of it that has a lot of cheap blockers, like maybe like Refi and then a couple Frogzookas that you could actually get the effect off of Great Arena. I got that idea from CVH. He actually used that on me. It's pretty good. So yeah, Hyperspeed Dragon is always going to be here to stay as well, and it's going to be seen a lot of different ways. So lastly, before I go, I just want to kind of give you a little bit of percentages as far as what kind of archetypes are being played more than others. Now, I believe in the Rise meta, Control and Aggro were fairly even as far as how often you see them, Aggro being most often Hyperspeed Dragon, of course. Or, you know, you could always go the Water, Nature, Fire deck without using Hyperspeed, like Gorby has shown off, which is really cool. And then Control was seen in a lot of different ways, especially like late into the format. Like Water Dark Nature was being used by a lot of different people. But now with Evil Fury being a lot more fast, Aggro is kind of tilted more towards the most used archetype than Control. Aggro is being used around like 44 to half the time out of all the decks, and then Control is at like 31%, and Rush is at 25%, which I think is still an increase because Rush really wasn't a thing in Rise meta. Like, it could have worked, but it was missing that punch that it needed, like Laser Arm Dracon and these evolutions and all this cheap bait from all the other civilizations that support fire. And so that's why Rush got a little bit of a bump in play. I would say at least like a 5 to 10% bump. and so Rush and aggro kind of like absorb the percentage of control decks. So overall, the format is still looking really awesome. Tons of different decks you can play. I think from what I've seen, I've seen at least like 30 different kinds of decks as far as like Civilization or Archetype goes. The mono decks are always fun to play as well. I personally think the Darkness one is probably the best one, followed by either Light or Fire. I mean, Water looks really good on paper, but I just haven't seen Water Cyberlords perform that well. Like, I've never seen it, like, just destroy an opponent. I've always seen it, like, just barely hang on by a thread and then just praying they get a Neuron to win the game. So I think Cyberlords need a little bit of work, the Mono Water deck anyways. And I haven't tested Fire yet, but I think Mono Fire seems pretty fun and could be quite viable. You know, the triple Blastforge Captain, triple Laser Arm Dracon, and all the removal. I think that is quite a potential deck that I'm willing to try out. But the Darkness Chimera Madness thing is quite ridiculous. If you haven't seen Earth Power's Duel, he just kind of destroyed Water, despite Return from Beyond not doing anything. I'm sorry, Channel Kaijudo Master, as much as you say it actually has quite a use in the deck. Like, I have never seen Return from the Beyond being used quite efficiently. I just think there are better cards to be used in the Mono Darkness deck, or in any deck for that matter. I think it was just a really overrated card, and I saw it from the very beginning. Like, I didn't see much use in the card. I mean, I guess it's good late game. It's really good in shields anyway, but I can never see myself casting that card. Like, you saw Earth Power's match. It just went straight to mana every time because no creatures hit the discard pile. And so, Mono Darkness, I think, is really, really good, even without Return from Beyond. I don't think Return from Beyond is really needed. Maybe as like a tech, I would use it, maybe just for that one slight surprise Return from Beyond, but I would never use it in 3 unless like it's a Fire Darkness Rush. It's like the only deck I can think of where I'd want to do that, so I could get back like Gill of Flame that got Bone Bladed or Tornado Flamed or whatever. But other than that, don't really see much of a use in Return from Beyond. But anyways, that's just me rambling about the meta and certain cards and stuff like that. So I saw a lot of people were kind of interested in my analysis videos, so I'm going to keep on doing them as much as I can. Unfortunately, we don't have organized play, so it's really hard to do this. You know, this is just kind of me sitting back and just looking around different places and seeing what decks are being used. And so I can't really give you much of an analysis, but I guess it's just like a basic kind of breakdown of what's going on in Kaijudo right now. Like, maybe if I notice something similar to the Water Dark Nature Control, random burst in popularity at the end of Rise, maybe I could pick up on that and talk about it. But that's pretty much all I could really do as far as analysis goes. Anyways, guys, this is TKC signing off. Hope you enjoyed the video and hope you had a nice day. Alright, guys, see you later.